Hello again. Good day to everybody. Welcome to the Comprehensive Philippine Guide, your place to come to get all the information you need to know about migrating or visiting the Philippines. Today, I just want to touch on a little bit about owning property in the Philippines. I did that in an earlier video, and a couple people had asked me to clarify. And I want to just let foreigners know that obviously if you go to the Philippines and you meet a Filipina and then you decide to buy a property, you can buy it in her name. But also if you're there as a foreigner and maybe you have not hooked up with a Filipina, or you're a foreign couple and you're interested in buying property in the Philippines, there are a couple ways that you can actually do this. One of the ways is you can enter into an agreement with the owner of the property that you want to purchase. And this is for property, house and lot I'm speaking about. I'm not speaking about condos, because condos are a little bit different. So if you see a piece of land that you want to buy, or a land and a house that you want to buy, then you enter into an agreement with the owner of the property for a 75 or a 50-year lease. You pay off the property in full, and then you would have it for the next 50 years. Of course, you have to have a SPA prepared, a special power of attorney, and your lawyer will be able to do all of these documentation as well as the lease documents for you. So once you take possession of the property, then you have a leased property for 50 years, which is renewable for another 25 years and even a further 25 years. Now, if you intend to make the Philippines your home, eventually, obviously, you're going to become a resident of the Philippines, at which point you can transfer the property into your name. If you decide that you're just going to be there and continue extending your 13A visa, then if you have a child, once your child reaches 18, you can then transfer the property into your child's name. So in that way, you can actually have possession of the property. You will not own it, but you'll be leasing it for 50 years to extend 75 and 25 more and another 25. And within that time, if you decide to sell the property, again, you have rights under your lease agreement to sell the property and recuperate whatever money you've put into it. If you have a child, the child reaches 18, you can then transfer it into the child's name, and again, it is your property. Or if you eventually become a resident of the Philippines, you transfer it into your name, and it again becomes your property. The other way that you can do this, or actually, I also want to let people know that if you're going to buy a condo in the Philippines, now as a foreigner or a foreign couple, you can buy a condo. But one of the things that you have to remember is that condominium building that is built on a piece of land is actually a leased piece of land. So when you buy that condo, that is not a lifetime interest that you have. That is a 50-year or a 75-year possession of the property under the lease agreement that the condominium corporation made. So you have to look into that. The other thing that I want to point out, which you could do as well, is you could get a Filipino partner and form a corporation, and with that corporation you would be able to own 40% and your Filipino partner owns 60%, and then you put the property in the name of the corporation. This is the same thing with the condominium complexes, where the land is vested in a corporation's name. They build a building, and when you actually buy a condominium, you are actually buying a little share in that corporation. You're not privy to the documentation, but hence this is the reason that you have condo fees and other fees that you pay to maintain the building, maintain the elevator, security, what have you. And you have a committee that's put together by the condominium members because you are all part of the corporation. So I just wanted to touch on this with the properties to let people know that yes, foreigners can own property. Some people were saying that what I was advising is illegal, but anybody who's interested in buying a property, one of the things that you should do is do not buy a property. There's a lot of these vloggers on YouTube that are selling properties, go through a licensed real estate agent. These are people who have studied for a while, they're licensed, and they will be able to advise you best. They can advise you exactly what I'm saying. One of the things that you have to remember is before you buy any piece of property or make any down payment, be sure to do a survey and also a valuation on the property, because there are many people that are coming and selling properties that don't belong to them, and then they take your deposit and they disappear. The other thing I want to touch on in this video is, as foreigners, if you're going to the Philippines for the first time, you may not know exactly how to get there. Now, to get to the Philippines, there are two international airports. One is in Manila and one is in Cebu. So Manila is the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, and the one in Cebu is the Cebu Mactan International Airport. One of the things that you should be aware of is that if you're going through Manila, Manila is a very busy airport. And on occasion, your flight will be coming in and scheduled to come in at a certain time, maybe 10 p.m. And it will circle for a couple hours because, as they say, there's traffic on the runway to land. When you actually land, there's usually a lot of traffic in terms of people in the terminal. It's a little bit difficult to get a taxi. And those are some of the things that you have to take into consideration if you're going into Manila. Also, when you get into Manila, the other thing that you have to remember is that when you land at the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, from there, you're either going to go to Makati, to Pasay, to Malate, or one of these cities close to the airport. My advice is best to book a hotel close to the airport. You have the Hilton, you have the Sheraton, you have a couple nice hotels there. And the reason is that when you get out of the airport, it's 5 or 10 minutes to get to those hotels. If you book something in Malate, there's the Hyatt down in Malate that's close to the US Embassy, you're going to have a few hours well to get to that hotel. Also, if even in Pasay, you're going to have a few hours well to get down to that hotel. So one consideration is to book a hotel close to the airport. If you want to do Airbnb, my advice is do Airbnb in Makati. And also, one of the things that you have to remember is that when you leave the airport, you can go down through EDSA, or you can take the toll expressway. If you take the toll expressway, it's very fast. Most of the times there's no traffic, and you have an exit that gets you off right into Makati. And again, that's not going to take you too long to get there. If you're going to Pasay or you're going to Malate, you're going to find that you're going to have a problem with traffic. There's a lot of traffic. Also, when you're going to leave the Philippines and you have to get back to the airport, it's very difficult to time. So you may have to cater, 3, 4, 5 hours before to leave and get to the airport. If you go to Cebu Mactan International Airport, you can stay close to the airport at Lapu-Lapu, which is where the hotels are and where the airport is. If you cross the bridge, then you would head into Cebu City. Now, depending on the time that you get in, and again, my advice is when you're flying in, try to get a flight that's going to get in early in the morning, 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, and leave around that kind of time. If you take a flight that gets in at rush hour, you're going to be again stuck in a lot of traffic in Cebu. The traffic is becoming just as bad as Manila. The advantage of if you're in Cebu City, everything is close to you and close around. If you stay at the Waterfront Hotel in Lahug in Cebu, the American Embassy is within that compound, so it's not far for you. There is also a waterfront hotel close to the airport where you can stay. It's just walking across. So if you get in at rush hours, you want to stay over one day there, you can do that. And then the next morning at 5 or 6 a.m., you head into Cebu City. If you're going into Manila and you go down and you stay in Malate, along Bayview Avenue, the U.S. Embassy is right there. So again, if you're staying there, you're staying at the Hyatt, the U.S. Embassy is close if you need to get to it. And I'm saying U.S. Embassy because a lot of people tend to actually be coming from the US. If you're coming from the other countries, the embassies are spread out in different places. So if you're getting into Manila, it's a little bit different. If you're getting in to Cebu, it's a little bit different. Personally, I find getting into Cebu is always best. One of the things that I find with Cebu is, again, it's much easier to get in and out of the airport. You get into Cebu City, everything is pretty much right around you there. There's a lot to see, a lot of sights. And if you need to get to Manila, you just take a flight from Cebu and you can go to Manila. The domestic flights in the Philippines are usually Cebu Pacific. There's Philippine Airlines and there's Air Asia. I would always advise people to take Air Asia. And Air Asia actually is not as big as the others, but they're usually on time. And the way they're set up, it is very easy to get off of the plane when you get into Manila. Air Asia is on a totally different terminal, Terminal 3, I believe. And it's usually the only airline that comes in there. It's a small terminal, so you walk off the airplane, you get out very easily, and you can get a taxi. Same thing when you're checking in, you can get a taxi very easy. I think Cebu Pacific may fly out of that terminal as well. The other terminals where Philippine Airlines flies out of is airline. Those terminals are very busy. It's a little bit hectic to get a taxi. There's a long walk. So again, if you're doing domestic, use Air Asia. It's convenient. It's a very good service, and they're very comfortable. And actually, if you're doing Air Asia for 500 pesos, which is $10, you can get the front bulkhead seat. You have a lot of leg room. You get off the plane quickly, so you can get a taxi. You don't want to be at the back of the plane, so when you come off, you're on a long line for taxis. You also want to travel with hand luggage. Don't travel with too much check luggage, because again, if you get to the back of the line for the taxis, that's a little bit of a headache. If you're staying in Cebu, again, if you're at the waterfront hotel, it's easy to get a taxi straight to the airport. When you get into the airport in Cebu and you come back, it's easy to get a taxi back to the waterfront. If you go to Manila, it's the same thing. Out of Air Asia terminal, easy to get a taxi to go and come. Now in Cebu, there is also other good hotels. There's the Radisson Hotel. There's a bunch of them. There's Park Hyatt. There's a bunch of them. But what I have found is that the Waterfront Hotel is one of the best in terms of how the hotel is set out. You have the casino, you have restaurants, you have a lot of activities there. You can pretty much walk to Ayala Mall. It's like 10 minutes to SM Mall. It's very close to everything. If you want to get to the port, the ferry is 5 or 10 minutes away. The other hotels, it's kind of like the Radisson is just in the heart of Cebu by the port, so you're going to encounter a lot of traffic when you're moving there. One of the things that you have to keep in mind is that in the Philippines, traffic is all over. There's lots of traffic. People may or may not know, people drive badly there, motorcycles all over the place. So there's lots and lots of traffic. So you want to be situated in a place where it's easy to get around or where you can walk. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on this getting into the Philippines. Do remember that when you're getting to the Philippines, when you're going, you must have an onward or return ticket. Most of the first world countries, when you go there, you're going to get a 30-day visa. Again, when you get a 30-day visa and you then want to extend it, it's not hard. If you're in Manila, you go to Intramurios and you just follow the system. You can get your visa extended. If you're in Cebu, you go to Mandaue, and again, you can have your visa extended. If you're somebody who doesn't like to line up and you want to pay somebody to do it for you, there's a lot of these agencies, and maybe I'll get some links later on, that you can pay them maybe, I don't know, $200 or $300, and they will do everything for you. You just give them the passport, they get everything done for you. I personally prefer to go in and do it myself. I don't mind, even if it takes a whole day. I walk with a book, I read a book, but I prefer to get my thing done in person in the immigration office. In the Philippines, there's lots of underhanded stuff taking place, and you don't want to think that you got a visa and then when you go to leave, you find yourself in all kinds of problems. So there's not a problem. You get in, you get a 30 days. And of course, this is pre-pandemic. So now it may be a little bit different. You may actually have to get the visa leaving your country. But as I said, once everything's to normal, you get the 30 days. You can have it extended up to 3 years. And you can stay there. You can, you have a good time. There's lots to see. There's 7,000 islands in the Philippines, and everything is well set up for tourism. Wherever you go to the resorts, it's all well set up. The ferry service is well set up. Everything is very safe. Everything is pretty straightforward. English speaking, everything is in English. So I just wanted to give some people a little bit of update again about the buying property and about traveling into the Philippines. I know this went a little bit long, but I wanted to cover these things. So until my next video, everybody have a great day wherever you are. Thank you and God bless.